Welcome to Movie Night, the essay edition. Goodfellas 1990 is Martin Scorsese's electrifying portrait of mob life as experienced by Henry Hill, told in a rush of voiceover, whip-sharp editing, and wall-to-wall needle drops.
It's as much a film about seduction and memory as it is about crime, and the music is central to how that story is told. Below is a breakdown focused on the soundtrack's role, key production anecdotes, and casting stories, the script's origins, the budget and box office, and the awards and recognition the film has received. 1. How the music works in Goodfellas. No traditional score, only songs. Scorsese made a very deliberate decision. No composed background score, only pre-existing songs. Every piece of music in Goodfellas is sourced from the popular music of the time period depicted in a given scene, and he applied strict personal rules. The song had to be period accurate for the moment on screen. It had to comment on the scene or characters in an oblique way, never just wallpaper. He famously said he had much of the soundtrack picked out years in advance, long before shooting began. On set, he would even play tracks during takes to help actors find the rhythm and mood of a moment. Charting Henry's rise and fall through eras of music, critics and scholars have noted that Scorsese uses changing musical airs to mirror Henry Hill's life arc. 1950s doo-wop and pop. The innocent era dominate Henry's childhood and early fascination with the mob. Tony Bennett's Rags to Riches plays over the opening titles as Henry's narration begins, encapsulating his dream of going from a working-class Brooklyn kid to a man of power and privilege. Upbeat songs like Speedo by the Cadillacs accompany his early encounters with Jimmy Conway, making the wise guy world feel exciting, glamorous, and harmless. 1960s hits track Henry's full immersion into the crew and the height of the good times. Romantic and smooth tracks play over montages of nights at the Copa, big tips, and Henry and Karen's courtship, underscoring how the mob lifestyle feels like a fairy tale for a while. 1970s rock and hard-edge songs arrive as Henry's life spirals into drugs, paranoia, and violence. The Rolling Stones' Gimme Shelter and other rock cues reflect rebellion, decadence, and looming danger as Henry expands into cocaine trafficking and loses control. As one analysis sums it up, the innocent appeal of 1950s pop scores, Henry's formative years, while harsher 60s and 70s rock makes audible his fast downward spiral. Signature music moments. A few musical set pieces are now legendary. Rags to Riches' Tony Bennett title sequence, used immediately after the brutal trunk stabbing cold open, over the main titles in the line, "As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster." The song's aspirational lyrics frame Henry's story as a warped American dream fantasy. He equates being a gangster with success and escape from rags. Copa tracking shot with the crystals, Then He Kissed Me. As Henry takes Karen through the Copacabana's back entrance in the famous single-take tracking shot, Scorsese plays this romantic girl group hit. The floating, continuous movement and the song's swooning feel sell the mob world as seductively magical. Karen later says she was turned on by how everyone bound to Henry. Layla, piano, coda, Derek and the Dominoes. In the aftermath of the Lufthansa heist, a montage of bodies being discovered, frozen in meat trucks, and pink Cadillacs and garbage trucks, is underscored by the delicate piano outro of Layla. The contrast between the tender, melancholy music and the gruesome imagery turns the sequence into a kind of elegy, signaling the end of the good times and Jimmy's ruthless cleanup. The Last Day is a Wise Guy cocaine montage, multiple songs, Henry's frantic final day, cooking sauce, transporting duns, dealing coke, checking for helicopters, is famous for its hyperactive editing and barrage of songs. Harry Nilsson's Jump Into the Fire kicks the sequence off with a jagged, feral energy as Henry snorts cocaine. Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker then chop up 6 different songs in about 10 minutes, rapidly skipping between tracks to match Henry's scattered, paranoid perspective. This is a textbook example of how pop music and editing rhythm can embody a character's mental state. My Way Sid Vicious version over the end titles. The sarcastic punk cover plays over the closing credits, following Henry's lament that he now lives like a schmuck in the suburbs, doing things the hard way, like everyone else. The choice undercuts any nostalgic reading of his story. His way leads only to betrayal and boredom. Music, then, is not just mood, it's structural. It marks time, defines phases of Henry's life, and often provides ironic commentary that exposes the gap between how Henry feels and what the audience sees. 2. The story behind the script. Nicholas Pileggi's Wise Guy and Henry Hill's testimony. Goodfellas is based on journalist Nicholas Pileggi's non-fiction book Wise Guy, Life in a Mafia Family, 1985, which chronicled the life of real Lucchese family associate Henry Hill. Pileggi spent years interviewing Hill after Hill's 1980 arrest for drug trafficking and his decision to cooperate with the FBI. Wise Guy details Hill's involvement in robberies, the Lufthansa heist, extortion, drug dealing, and the long, slow erosion of his family life. Martin Scorsese read Wise Guy in galley form. The oft-quoted line has him phoning Pileggi and saying, "I've been waiting for this book my entire life." To which Pileggi replied, "I've been waiting for this phone call my entire life." They agreed to collaborate on the adaptation, sharing screenplay credit. Writing approach and fidelity. Pileggi has said that he effectively turned his research into scenes, while Scorsese shaped them into cinema, reordering events, inventing connective tissue, and deciding where voiceover would carry us. Many episodes, the Air France heist, the restaurant beating of Billy Batts, the witness relocation aftermath, come directly from Hill's accounts. The split voiceover, Henry and Karen both narrating, reflects Scorsese's interest in multiple perspectives on the same world. Scorsese and Pileggi also workshopped scenes with actors in rehearsal, letting improvisations inform rewrites. The script is unusually dense with detail and side characters, matching the oral history flavor of Wise Guy while remaining coherent on screen thanks to Thelma Shoemaker's editing. 3. Production anecdotes and on-set stories. The funny how, seeing Joe Pesci's most famous moment, the funny how, like I'm a clown, I amuse you, seeing, grew directly from his own experience. Pesci told Scorsese about a time he casually called a mobster funny, and the man responded with genuine menace, taking it as an insult. Scorsese had Pesci and Ray Liotta improvise a version of this in rehearsal. He then shaped it into a scripted scene and deliberately didn't tell the other actors exactly how it would play out, so their reactions would be real. The sequence was performed several times and filmed with multiple cameras so Pesci could play with the tension. It has since become one of the most quoted scenes in gangster film history and was a major factor in Pesci's eventual Oscar win. The Copacabana tracking shot. The unbroken Steadicam track shot that follows Henry and Karen from the street, through the Copa's back corridors, down the stairs, across the kitchen, and into the main room, was born partly of necessity. Scorsese and cinematographer Michael Ballhaus originally planned to shoot Henry and Karen entering through the front, but they couldn't get permission to use that entrance at the location. Instead, Scorsese conceived a shot showing Henry's ability to bypass normal routes, literally going through the kitchen into the heart of the club. It took careful choreography of extras, waiters, and props. Ballhaus has said they shot it about 8 times and got what they needed in under a day. The scene is set to the Crystals' Then He Kissed Me, and together the music and camera movement create a sense of fairy tale romance and unstoppable forward motion. The camera almost never stops moving forward until the third act, when Henry's life collapses. De Niro's obsession with detail. Robert De Niro, playing Jimmy Conway, based on Jimmy the Gent Burke, was characteristically meticulous. Pileggi has said De Niro called him many times a day during production, asking what kind of watch Jimmy would wear, how he held cigarettes, how he ordered drinks. Scorsese arranged for De Niro to handle real money on set, about $5,000 in cash for the scene where Jimmy hands out cash at the bar, because De Niro felt prop money never behaved convincingly. His fixation on the small physical details helps make Jimmy feel like a fully lived-in presence, and it aligns with Scorsese's own emphasis on authenticity. Liotta, Bracco, and Sorvino. Some other notable anecdotes. Ray Liotta was not the studio's first choice. More on that below. But Scorsese felt his mix of boyish charm and coiled volatility was perfect. Liotta has described Scorsese as having the movie in his head and pushing him to find an almost documentary naturalism in Henry's narration and behavior. Lorraine Bracco fought hard for the role of Karen Hill. She has said studio executives were unsure about her. Scorsese liked that she was strong, not a shrinking violet. Her performance earned a Best Supporting Actress nomination. Paul Sorvino initially doubted he could be intimidating enough for Pauly, but after seeing his reflection one day with a particularly hard expression, he realized he had found the character. Later, critics often cite his quiet, heavy presence as a counterpoint to Pesci's volatility. 4. Alternative casting, the what-ifs. Warner Brothers initially favored bigger, marquee names than Ray Liotta for Henry Hill. Various reports and retrospectives mention a long list of actors who were considered or discussed for key roles. For Henry Hill, Tom Cruise, Sean Penn, Val Kilmer, Nicolas Cage, John Travolta, and Alec Baldwin were all considered at some point. Baldwin reportedly auditioned, and Liotta later joked that they probably would have rather had Eddie Murphy than me. For Karen, Madonna's name came up among others, though Scorsese ultimately chose Bracco for her grounded energy and ability to go toe-to-toe with Liotta. For Jimmy Conway, once De Niro committed, financing was effectively secured, so that role became non-negotiable. For Tommy DeVito, Joe Pesci initially turned down the role. Scorsese personally invited him to his apartment to talk him into it, after which Pesci began sharing stories from his own youth in Jersey bars that directly fed into the character. Looking back, it's hard to imagine anyone but Liotta, De Niro, Pesci, Bracco, and Sorvino in these parts. But those casting what-ifs show how differently the film might have played if the studio's more conventional star choices had prevailed. 5. Budget and box office. Production budget, Goodfellas, was produced for an estimated $25 million. For an R-rated, graphically violent gangster picture in 1990, this was a mid-range budget, enough to allow for extensive location work, period cars, large ensembles, and a long music clearance list, but not on the scale of a major effects-driven blockbuster. Box office performance, according to the numbers in IMDb, Goodfellas' theatrical run looked like this. Opening weekend U.S.-Canada, $6,368,901 from 1,070 theaters. Domestic U.S.-Canada gross, about $46.70, $46.9 million. International gross, around $0.36 million, reported, for a modest overseas return. Worldwide total, approximately $47.10 million, or about 1.9 times its production budget. That made it a modest box office success, not a runaway hit. In the context of 1990, it performed respectably for an R-rated crime film heavy on profanity and violence. But it was not a blockbuster. Its true impact came through critical acclaim, home video, and long-term cultural influence. 6. Awards and recognition. Academy Awards. At the 63rd Academy Awards honoring 1990 releases, Goodfellas received 6 nominations. Best Picture, Best Director, Martin Scorsese. Best Supporting Actor, Joe Pesci. Best Supporting Actress, Lorraine Bracco. Best Adapted Screenplay, Nicholas Pileggi and Martin Scorsese. Best Film Editing, film A Shoemaker. Joe Pesci won Best Supporting Actor, delivering his famously short acceptance speech, "It's my privilege. Thank you." Many observers at the time thought Scorsese had a strong case for director, but the award went to Kevin Costner for Dances with Wolves. Other major awards and lists. Beyond the Oscars, Goodfellas earned extensive recognition. It won multiple critics' awards, including prizes from the New York Film Critics Circle and the Boston Society of Film Critics. The film won the BAFTA Award for Best Film Editing, Film A Shoemaker, and was nominated in several other BAFTA categories. On the American Film Institute lists, Goodfellas appears in the AFI 100 Movies 10th Anniversary Edition and is frequently ranked among the top gangster films of all time. In 2000, it was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Over time, its reputation has only grown. Many critics and filmmakers now consider Goodfellas one of the definitive American films of the late 20th century, and it has deeply influenced later crime storytelling, most notably The Sopranos, which borrowed actors Bracco, imperially in tonal cues from it. 7. Why the music, stories, and casting choices matter. If you put all of this together, Goodfellas becomes a case study in how popular music, lived experience, and careful casting can turn a true crime story into something mythic. The music doesn't simply decorate scenes, it charts the psychological weather of Henry's life, from the doo-wop optimism of his youth to the hard-work crash of his coke-fueled downfall. With each needle drop chosen years in advance to comment on the scene in a subtle way. The anecdotes, Pesci's funny how improv, De Niro's real money, the Copacabana shot born of a logistical obstacle, show a director and cast using personal stories and practical problems to build some of the film's most iconic moments. The alternative casting tales illuminate how delicate the film's tone is. A more conventional leading man might have pushed it toward a different kind of star vehicle, whereas Ray Liotta's relative unfamiliarity helped the movie feel more like a lived-in chronicle than a celebrity showcase. And the budget award story underscores that Goodfellas was not a mega hit on release, but a strong performer whose long tail, critically, culturally, and on home media, turned it into one of the cornerstone works of modern American cinema. If you'd like, I can follow this with a separate scene-by-scene breakdown that tracks exactly how the soundtrack evolves across Henry's childhood, peak mob years, and paranoid collapse.